Welcome to the Old Mac Gang podcast, or OMG if you prefer. And I've got the OMGs with us tonight. It's a vodcast with a panel of longtime Mac Apple users who want to discuss the most relevant apps and services to age-seasoned users. I'm Marty Jencius, a Apple enthusiast and podcaster. I'm 67 years old, age-seasoned, and I've collected a great group of friends to talk about Apple and some of the issues that seasoned citizens you run into with Apple. So let's see who's with us tonight.
I'm Peter Petto. I'm a retired foundry man and second career high school math teacher. I dove into the Apple ecosystem in 2006, and I love using many of Apple's devices every day.
I'm Chris Wesselman. I started on the Mac in 1984 and was active in Apple user groups in Texas, and then had a great opportunity to go to work for Apple in the software support when System 7 came out, and eventually moved on to Stanford University out in the San Francisco Bay Area doing basic computer support for the School of Education, which was a really interesting experience. And now I'm retired in Tucson, Arizona. And so I use basically an M1, Mac Mini, and iPhone 16 Pro Max, and an older 9th generation iPad, I guess. And
hi, I'm Gary Sherck. I live in Cleveland. I'm 87 years old. Switched from PCs when I retired to Apple 20 years ago. And fortunately, I found two Apple user groups in Cleveland, both with overlapping members.
Okay, thanks, guys. I'm going to share with you a little bit. Tonight, we're going to talk about primarily the hearing test, but that leads into discussions about hearing aids, or can we call them hearing aids? I think the FDA says that they are cleared as sort of not full hearing aids, but they'll help with moderate hearing loss in terms of augmenting. Peter, why don't you tell us how to set up for a hearing test? What kind of things you need, and then how to do it?
You need AirPods too, as you mentioned, and you need iOS 18.1. And when you go into the health app, you will see a thing, take a hearing test, a nice little card near the top that will march you right through it. But the essential thing you need to do is find a quiet place. So you'll go to a quiet place. I will tell you that the whole test rigmarole takes maybe 5 to 7 minutes. And it will do some things to make sure that your AirPods are secure and you have a good seal around your ear. And then it will start to give you a series of triple tones. And every time you hear a triple tone, you tap the screen and you see a little animation, and the tones go up and down in pitch, they go up and down in volume, and they do one ear entirely and then they do the other ear. And when you're done, it then says, do you want to set this up to, I guess it depends on what your hearing is. In my case, it reported that I had little to no hearing loss, negative 18 decibels in my left ear and negative 12 in my right. And that's consistent with my impression that my right ear is a little bit better than my left ear. And then it allows you to set up that when you listen to music, when you listen to anything through the AirPods, that it will make an adjustment for the hearing loss curves that it finds. And you can look at the curve, but in most people's cases, it'll show that you can't hear high notes as well as you can hear low notes. That's pretty common. And you can also later go in and turn your AirPods on to just amplify anything that's around you. So that you go into the settings screen, there's an AirPod screen, and then you'll see a hearing aid toggle at the top. So there's sort of two things you can do. One is take care of the stuff you're normally listening to, and one is to go in and turn them on as hearing aids. There is one feature that's available to people prior to this, and I think it's called live listening. And you can, I guess I don't know the steps quite as well, but you can find a place where you could put your iPhone next to someone who's talking, or next to the TV speaker, or next to something that's emitting some sound, and it will pump that into your AirPod. So that's a separate feature that I wouldn't call hearing aid, but it is something that's been available on AirPods and iPhones for a while.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from other folks in terms of their experience doing the test. I'll share a little bit of mine. I too, like you, Peter, had slight to none as a result, which my wife disputes with me constantly and vigorously. But it was slight to none. It was about the same decibel loss, -18 or -12. And the curve was real interesting because it showed me frequencies where I have the whatever loss that I have as part of the frequencies. So it's interesting to see, but again, it didn't need to be taken any further because I don't have hearing aids, and according to the device, I don't need it yet. One of the things that I noticed was it appears to be, and I think this might be part of the spatial aspect of it, because the AirPods Pro 2s are essential component being able to do this. And the Pro 2s, it seemed like some of those sounds, those three-tone sounds, came from different directions around the room. So some of the tones, sometimes it sounded like the tones were coming from behind me, and sometimes it was they were coming in front of me or directly off to the side. So for me, it was just an interesting experience to try and recognize those tones. And some of them are real dog whistle. You hear this pattern, and I don't know if they do this deliberately. Possibly they do, but you get into a regular pattern of tapping the screen, and then the pattern seems to stop. And is it because it's hitting frequencies that I haven't heard, or they're trying to alternate so it's not a regular pattern? The other thing I discovered from doing the test was I was missing some of the input because you have to tap in the center. There's a ring that develops that comes on your iPhone screen. And when you hear it, you have to tap in the center of that ring in order for it to register. So I was tapping and not getting registered on certain frequencies that I had heard. But the interface, you got to make sure that you're tapping in the right location to make it happen. That's been my experience. I don't know, Chris?
Well, first of all, I have the original AirPods Pro, so I can't do the hearing test with those, right? It's only the AirPods 2 Pro or AirPods Pro 2. However, I've been part of the Apple research tests that Apple offers and you can sign up for. And I've done heart health hearing, and they've had some couple of others. I think they had one during COVID and so on. And that hearing one pretty much lines up. I have regular hearing aids that I wear, and I have probably moderate hearing loss. It's in the 60 to 80 range. And so I don't hear well without them. The Apple Research test had just single tones, but it was approximately the first half of what I get when I go to the audiologist, because they put me in a sound booth and it's very quiet. And then they also have words with background noise and stuff. And, as you get into, I think, Gary, you wear hearing aids as well, right? Yeah, so you can chime in here, but basically losing my train here. Yeah, For instance, at one point I was having a particular problem with consonants. My audiologist said, "Oh, no problem. Here are the consonants." Then he went to kind of the center or the heart of my audiogram, and he just literally circled them and hit the up arrow and lifted the volume of the consonants, and it really made a difference. So it can get a lot more complicated, and directionality is really important. If you're walking across a college campus like I was, and you heard a dinging bicycle, you needed to know what direction it was coming in so that you could avoid it. And so directionality, there's a lot more going on with, professional hearing aids. However, we'll get into more in a few minutes on Apple's efficacy in doing all of this. But Gary, do you want to sort of hop in and say what your experience has been?
Sure. I took the test twice. Peter, Marty, I was able also to use the AirPods that would take the test that I used to take the test. And the reason I took it the second time was it said moderate, and it was the numbers I wrote down were 55 in my left ear and 53 in my right ear. I know they're both about the same. I've been wearing hearing aids for at least 20 years. And recall, I said I'm 87. And I'm aware and have been aware of my hearing loss. So my problem was getting a good fit, because when you take the test, there's also a test there was to be sure you have a good fit. And for some reason, and I didn't want to change actually, I use these same ones that I'm using here. But I ended up kind of pushing in to make them very snug. And then the second time I took the test, I used one right finger, and I kind of held I don't think I lost it. I kind of kept my finger, but I got the same results, whether it was a good fit or not. So my other comment is, because I got the recent hearing aids at Costco, and I know the person there that does a friend that does the testing. So in a way, I have an audiologist, and there's able to adjust the hearing aids, and also they're Philips, and on my phone, I can also raise the volume from left and right with numbers 1, 2, 3, and sometimes I do that. The other thing is I did, like you do, Chris, of using the AirPods over the top of my hearing aids, and I liked that. But then if it's just me and my dog, I don't and a computer, and I'm home, I can do without the hearing aids, because as you know, most people, that's in your ear all the time, and you're very much aware that there's something in your ear. And after a while, it's better for me not to have anything there. So I can get through much of the day without wearing my hearing aids. But if I go out, it's like don't leave home without them. I'm really lost. And you can't just keep asking people to repeat what you haven't heard.
So I've got a question.
That's my experience, Marty.
Yeah. Gary, I'm going to start with you, and then maybe Chris can chime in. I'm not familiar with hearing aids. So are your hearing aids over the ear, or are they in the ear?
They're it seems like today, because their hearing aids are worn by many people over 60, say. There's a plastic, I should have brought them, or so I could show you. They're over the ear, but inside the ear is there's a little tube that you can hardly see. And inside, there's almost like the earbud, a little plastic connector that fits snugly in your ear. And then a little speaker is there inside of that little plastic.
Can you wear the earbuds while you have that
If
hearing
you,
aid in
Chris
your ear?
can, yeah, if you wear the ones like Chris has. I mean,
I don't know.
Chris, what do you call those? Like, yeah, Chris showing you what it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and see the outside piece over the ear here has microphones in it. And
Yeah.
so that's what picks up the sound.
Yeah.
And then it pumps it into the piece that is in your ear. And like Gary says, it's very much in your ear. And I'll quickly put it back so I could hear.
Yeah.
But there are a variety of settings. Like basically, I've got 4 different programs. One is sort of for every day. One is for restaurants with loud noise, which is the most challenging thing for hearing aids. Because if you're in a noisy coffee shop or something, these guys will pick up perfectly on the conversation behind me. That doesn't help my wife who's sitting in front of me. Yeah. And so and we also have equalizers. So one of the tricks I learned with this my third set that I'm on now is in a noisy restaurant, a lot of the noise, quote unquote, is in the treble range. So I just zero out the treble, lift the mid range a little bit, and then, bass depending, but, she has sort of an alto voice. Most humans actually do have sort of alto voices, unless you're James Earl Jones or something, but so that helps too. So there are a lot of games we play to, improve the hearing.
Well, I want to be clear on this then. So you can't take your hearing aids and have them on and at the same time stick earpods in your ear.
Sure.
Oh, you
I
can.
piggyback them.
Okay. All right.
I think
Yours are wired, which
Yeah.
so they're not going in the canal.
My AirPods Pro with the ear tips would be a bit of a problem
Yeah.
because, for one thing, that wouldn't work as well, and they might fall out.
Yeah.
But as I mentioned last time, I think I did, which was circa about 2010 or 11, they didn't stream to the iPhone yet. So when I got a phone call, I still had to put on my earbuds.
Yeah.
And so the first time the phone rang, I thought, uh-oh, what am I going to do? So I just instinctively put the earbuds in and it worked. And I thought, well, isn't that nice?
Yeah.
And so, but we've also got things with the full hearing aids where we can control the sound. Like one of my settings is just streamed sound. So in other words, if I'm listening to Duolingo in the car, I can turn off the external microphones, so I just hear what's coming from the iPhone into the hearing aid.
Yeah.
But I mean, this isn't to take away anything from what Apple's doing. I don't want to discourage people on that. It's just that hearing aids get pretty complicated, and that's why they're expensive.
Yeah.
They range from $3,000 to $6,000 for a pair.
But the AirPods make them accessible to people who can't
Absolutely
get. It's an accessible price for people who can't get $3,000 to $6,000 hearing aids. I want to get Peter back in, so I'd like to ask him the next question, and we can go around on this if you have ideas. Implications for Apple's this device. The hearing aid, or the hearing test, and then the potential of it being a supplemental hearing aid for folks.
Well, the hearing test, I think, is great because I anticipate taking the hearing test every 3 months for the rest of my life and watching how it changes. It keeps a record of all of that. And I think for people before hearing loss sets in, to see its onset would be an interesting thing. I'm looking forward this winter because it's my perception. I listen to music very intensely. And I think in the winter, my left ear gets better. And I think it's because I don't run air conditioning and keep my car window open. And the wind noise actually probably is hammering my left ear a little bit. That's my theory, but we're going to find out. I look forward to using it in a way that's maybe a little unconventional, But, you know, I can listen to my Apple TV through my AirPods, but when people come in the room, they're not quite sure what's happening, and then they talk to me and I don't hear them, and then I stop the TV. It's like a big hassle. But what I tested since doing the hearing test is just turning the TV way down and then turning hearing aid mode on. So when they come in, they hear a little bit of the TV, so they know something's up, but it wasn't so loud to disturb them in the other rooms. And, you know, but I could still hear it loud enough. So that's a use I'm going to experiment with. It's a little fiddly getting that exactly right. The last thing I wanted to mention is a way that I'm using maybe hearing aid upside down, but I've been using AirPods for a little more than a year before this came out as hearing protection. So when I go to music concerts, the PA is generally too loud, and I've actually been wearing earplugs at shows since the 1970s. And somewhere in the late 90s, I spent a lot of money to get tuned earplugs so that the music would still be in balance, highs and lows, which required an audiology test and all that. But I found that just putting AirPods in, going into transparency mode, the music is not too loud and I can hear it really well. And in fact, they've made several improvements over the last year or so that's made it better and better, you know, as that goes along. And so I think that's something you'll see. So I look forward to doing it. I think that, to me, you know, and I don't wear hearing aids, but the thing that immediately comes to mind, you know, from when I've been on a long hike and I'm listening to an audiobook, is that after 4 or 5 hours, my AirPods are dead.
Mhm.
And so I couldn't go through a day using them really as hearing aids. I need to have a couple pairs of AirPods. So when that happened, I'd switch out. So if you're thinking of actually using it as a hearing aid, you know, don't say they're only $300. I would say they're only $600 because you're going to need 2 sets.
Yeah, or you could use one in the ear for, you know, 4 hours and then put it in the charger and take the other one out and put it in the other ear. I mean, at least you got
Yeah.
one good ear.
That's
It
like
just changes from time.
that's like fingernails on a chalkboard to me. I mean, when I was a teacher, seeing my kids sharing wired earbuds, one in each person's ears, just drove me crazy because, you know, you're not hearing everything. But
You know,
definitely.
along those same lines, when you talk about hearing protection, I think it's Jason Snell was talking a lot about loop. Loop are these earplugs that you can buy at different levels of intensity, and they actually have dials on them. So you can dial in on each earplug how much sound gets through. And I have tinnitus. I have bad tinnitus. Um, and particularly in long trips with my wife and my daughter in the car, they talk really loud. My daughter is a vocal performer, and it's like I need to tune that down because I feel like I'm trapped in a sound cannon when that happens. So I'm gonna try these loop earbuds that I got to see if I can just dial it down a little bit, lose a few decibels, particularly when I'm in the car. Gary, your ideas about how this device could affect our age group?
Well, I think it does have great potential. From what Chris said too, the more it's simple, the more money you would spend for hearing aids, the better they are, and all the things that Chris can do with his. Because I found Chris on these lesser expensive hearing aids, I had my friend, the audiologist, stop my phone from going into my hearing aids. It was just irritating, and I really didn't need it. If I wanted to listen to music, I would use the AirPods and take the hearing aids out at the time. So I think over the next years or so, Apple they'll become better. And I would love to hear the sound that I get through AirPods through my hearing aids. And even now, My hearing aids primarily just amplify the sound. That's what yeah, it doesn't really do all the qualities that Chris, the ones that he has performed for him. So there is a difference in quality of hearing aids. So, but most of them I think are just to give you a greater volume so you can hear like a microphone that somebody has.
Well, the importance of what Apple's really doing with this, roughly 75% of men age 65 have some hearing loss. It goes up to 85% by 75. And for women, it's 50% and 75 at the two age things. And most people don't realize it unless their spouse or partner says, you know, you've got hearing loss. You keep saying what? And my situation was at work, I would have professors come by and they would bang on the glass for my cube. And sometimes I wouldn't even hear that. And they just walk around and I'd look and here's the professor standing there right next to me because I hadn't heard them yet. So it was pretty obvious that I needed the hearing aids. But, you know, the importance of people finding out and trying it out and seeing what they can do and any real help they can get is a huge plus. And the even bigger plus is there's a big stigma in pediatric hearing aids. You know, with little kids who are born with hearing deficiencies and that sort of thing. First of all, they don't look like a freak by wearing hearing aids because they have that telltale, everyone can tell, oh, I can see the band. Most people don't even see my hearing aids, but they don't know probably where to look. But with kids hate it and they hate having something in their ear. So if Apple can take some of that away with AirPods, it will be a huge plus because you can imagine what these kids are losing by not wearing their hearing aids. And also with seniors, they've done some various tests about isolation and self-isolation leading to various forms of cognitive decline. If people sort of give up after a while because nobody can hear, he can't hear them. Yeah, I'm saying he, but it could be she as well. And that is a big deal to, and you know, who knows, like, you know, my old roommate from boarding school, it turned out he is stone deaf in one ear and he can still hear out of the other ear. And they can do this amazing thing now where they still put a hearing aid in the left ear and you could swear that there's hearing coming into the deaf ear, but there really isn't. It's all being done by the hearing aids. So there's a lot of magic that they can do with advanced hearing loss. But again, not to take away at all, I think it's a huge deal that Apple's doing this and to help people, you know, get started and with the idea, yes, I've got some hearing loss and, you know, it'll help as opposed to the other thing I was going to say, Marty, is you know, I think even Apple has background sound. But like my hearing aids have various background sounds that can help people with tinnitus or tinnitus.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the theories you probably know is that the brain creates the tinnitus because it doesn't hear, it wants to hear some noise. So if it hears some light background noise like rain or a lake side or something like that, it goes, oh, I don't need to make the tinnitus because there's already some noise there. Now, the question is, you've got to like the background noise and it's got to work for you over the top of what you're normally hearing.
Well, I'll tell you, with the tinnitus, one of the things that I am aware of that when I put on noise cancellation on my headphones or on my AirPods, the tinnitus disappears. I could be playing nothing through the AirPods or nothing through the headphones, but when they're on, the ringing in my ears stop. When the noise cancellation is on the device.
For the ambient sound, you mean? When you turn off the ambient sound, then the tinnitus goes away.
When I switch it from, there can be nothing playing through the device, whether they're headsets or earbuds. If I put them in my ear and nothing's playing, but I leave the noise cancellation on, I won't have tinnitus. If I turn the noise cancellation off, I get tinnitus. So it returns. So I don't know how to figure that out. I don't think we're going to figure it out tonight,
No,
but I
sure.
just find it's a benefit for me sometime to put headphones in or headphones on or earbuds in with the noise cancellation on because the ringing stops. So
Yeah,
lots
I
of
use
yeah.
noise cancellation all the time when I'm mowing the lawn or
yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah. This is a great panel. I mean, Peter comes with all these interesting hacks. And I remember from the first show, you were going to do some hacks, and I think you came up with some hearing hacks for us tonight. Gary's out there field testing it and getting some good ideas with what he's doing. And then Chris is bringing in some history and some technology piece. So I really appreciate the panel tonight, particularly this topic. I will, one last piece I'll mention. This came out just after Apple announced the hearing test capabilities of the AirPods. And the FCC has now demanded that all smartphones or assistive technology have the capability of doing hearing aids through them. So, I thought it was just every Bluetooth device that you put in your ear has to have it. No, every handheld device, all mobile handsets such as smartphones must be compatible with hearing aids. So whether Apple's getting into that market full swing, or whether this was just the beginning of it, I think it's really cool that now the FCC is suggesting that this needs to be happening on all mobile handsets for that compatibility. So thanks guys. Thanks to the Old Mac gang. And let's wrap up this episode. We aim to record on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. where you can watch the crew on YouTube at youtube.com/@oldmacgang. We'll use this site, and if there are any changes, you'll see it on the site in terms of our regular recording time. Please share this with our friends and with your Mac user groups that we have this podcast now that's directed to age-seasoned technology users. Our music bed is by Philip Gross, Marrakesh, courtesy of the Free Music Archive. You can find out more information about this podcast and the other ones that I do can be found at thepodtalk.net. Thanks to Gary, Chris, and Peter for joining tonight. You guys are great. I'm glad you're part of this. And thank you for being part of the Old Mac gang. See you next time.